Today's teaser reading comes from The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate by Jacqueline Kelly. I have to thank Polish Outlander for sending this to me. Thank you, because I love it. In this little section, close to the beginning, Calpurnia Tate, who is an 11-year-old girl living at the turn of the century, is trying to figure out a little bit about evolution. She's heard of Darwin and the origin of the species, and she's found two types of grasshoppers on her property, and she's trying to figure out why they're different. Can't get her hands on origin of species because it was very controversial. She made this long trip with her brother to a bigger town to try to get it from the library, and the librarian basically just condemned her for even wanting it. So now she's very frustrated, and she's about to turn to her last hope, which is her very intimidating scholarly grandfather. So, it took me a week to get up the nerve to visit grandfather again. He was sitting in his laboratory on a dilapidated armchair, the oozing stuffing mined by mice. I said, "I know why the big grasshoppers are yellow and why the little ones are green." I told him my discovery and how I'd figured it out. I shifted from foot to foot as he looked at me and listened in silence. After a while he said, "Did you come up with this on your own? With no help?" "Yes," I said, and then told him about my humiliating trip to the Lockhart Library. He stared at me for a moment with an odd expression on his face. Perhaps surprise, perhaps consternation, as if I were a species he'd never seen before. He said, "Come with me." He didn't speak a word as we walked to the house. Oh dear. I had done the unthinkable, not once but twice, by interrupting him at his work. Was he going to turn me over to Mother for yet another lecture on good manners? He led me into the library, where we children were not supposed to go. So he was going to deliver the lecture himself. Perhaps he would berate me for my clumsy theory, or perhaps he would switch me across the hands. My dread grew. Who was I, Callie V. Tate of Fentress, Texas, to think I could even contemplate such matters? A nobody from nowhere. Despite my fear, I took a good look around the room, since I knew I'd never have the chance again. The library was dim, even with the heavy bottle green velvet drapes drawn back from the tall double window. Right by the window sat a huge leather armchair, and a spool table holding a lamp for reading. There were books on the floor by the chair, and more books stacked in tall wooden shelves made from our failed pecan trees. You couldn't escape the enduring fact of pecans in our lives. There was a large oak desk covered in intriguing oddities, a blown ostrich egg on a carved wooden stand, a microscope nesting in a shagreen leather case, a carved whale's tooth etched with a bosomy lady not exactly contained by her corset. The family Bible and a huge dictionary with its own magnifying glass lay side by side next to a red plush album full of cramped formal portraits of my ancestors. So, would I be getting the Bible lecture or the letting down my ancestors lecture? I waited while he made up his mind. I glanced around the walls, which were covered with shallow boxes displaying alarming stick insects and brightly multicolored butterflies. Below each gay scrap of color was a scientific name in my grandfather's careful copperplate script. I forgot myself and went over to peer at them. "Bear," said grandfather. "Huh?" I thought. "Watch the bear," he said, just as I tripped on the open, sneering mouth of a black bearskin rug, its fangs a trap in the gloom for the unwary. "Right. Bear, sir." Grandfather unthreaded his watch chain to remove a tiny key. He unlocked a tall glass cabinet crammed with more books, preserved birds, bottled beasts, and other curios. I sidled over to get a better look at this irresistible display. A misshapen armadillo caught my eye, warped and buckled and lumpy, obviously stuffed by the most inept amateur. Why did he have that? I could have done better. Next to it was a 5-gallon specimen bottle of thick glass, containing the strangest beast I had ever seen. A thick, blobby form, multiple arms, 2 big glaring eyes distorted by the glass into huge saucer orbs, the stuff of nightmares. What on earth was it? I drew closer. Grandfather reached into the stack of books. I saw Dante's Inferno next to the Science of Hot Air Ballooning. There was a study of mammalian reproduction and a treatise on drawing the female nude. He extracted a book covered in rich green Morocco leather, handsomely tipped with gold. He polished it with his sleeve, although I could see no dust on it. Ceremoniously, he bowed and offered it to me. I looked at it. The Origin of Species. Here, in my own house. I received it in both my hands. He smiled. Thus began my relationship with Granddaddy. Evolution of Calpurnia Tate. Pick it up. It's awesome.